時をかける希望恐竜戦隊ジュレンジャー
Welcome to Chojin Chumps, everyone. I'm John. I'm here with my brother Jay.
Hello.
And today we are covering episodes 5 and 6 of Zyurangers. Now here's the thing. I know last time we were like, oh, we're finally out of the two-parters. Yeah, no. So that makes from episode 1 to 6 has been a series of two-parters just establishing the Rangers and their powers. And I know I have some opinions on this. I'm eager to talk to my brother about this. So let's go ahead and dive in.
And we're eager to talk at you about this.
Yeah. So episode 5, I do not have it written down, the title.
Scary Riddles.
Scary Riddles, thank you. So this, right off the bat, is going to be interesting because it is already we're seeing a monster that we have seen in Mighty Morphin, but it has to be used inherently differently because this monster is very much based both in Japanese wordplay and is a Japanese character. So I guess we'll just dive in. So it begins with a weird dude appearing, and he's just a regular Japanese man with a
Pee-wee Herman outfit.
a Pee-wee Herman outfit and an Egyptian headdress with the asp on the top of it. And he appears to this kid, and he asks him a riddle. And they're simple riddles, like which way a horse is facing left, then right, which way does the tail face? And the kid's like, down, because it's a bullshitty riddle. The tail always faces down. But I love this because it was just so unexpected.
It was aggressive.
Yeah. So he's like, bing bong, and suddenly the kid's in a chair. And it's a quiz type thing where he's like, you have 10 seconds. If you win, to answer my riddles. If you win, you get a trip around the world. If you lose, I don't think he gave a reason what happens. He just like, don't lose.
Something you always want to hear when you're magically transported into a chair.
And so the kid is getting them until, and I'm glad they use this, they use the riddle of the Sphinx. Real simple one. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening. You know, it's man, because when he's a baby, he crawls. When he's a man, he walks. When he's old, he uses a cane.
And he grows a 3rd leg.
Yeah. Some men and women grow 3rd legs. That being said, we're very inclusive here. That being said,
the kid eventually loses.
Yeah, the kid loses that, and then he has the best reaction ever. He leans forward and he goes, "Wrong, loser," and then he turns around, he spins, and changes into Dora Sphinx, a really cool-looking Sphinx monster that is just this Egyptian lion. Well, I guess it's a Sphinx with wings, and he flaps his wings and blows the kids away, and he just laughs about it. And then it shows his next victim and his next victim. And he's just sitting there giving them riddles and calling them losers and blowing them away. So this, I guess this is a fine point to talk about now. This is very, very different from what we got in Mighty Morphin. Because in Mighty Morphin, his name was King Sphinx. And King Sphinx, what he would do is he'd blow the Rangers away and keep them from being able to attack. But he then uses his blowing power to isolate Jason, and Jason has to take on King Sphinx and Goldar at the same time. It was epic. Here, not so much.
Yeah, because this was an impossible character to translate as he was. Not only was his human form basically designed after a Japanese game show host, it was also just the fact that his riddles, which usually was accompanied with a picture, he'd hold up, like whether you were right or wrong, he'd hold up a little flashcard
To
with a
explain
picture
it.
that explained the answer. But you know what I mean, when you hold up that picture and the whole riddle stems from like kanjis and how you decipher or how this word means these two phrases, like no way was this ever going to translate into America. At least they could not salvage enough from the non-costume scenes to make it a full-fledged two-part episode like this was.
Yeah. So from there, we are then greeted with something I'm very glad we got to see. Boy and Dan are walking around exploring the world, and Dan is fucking thirsty. He is after the ladies, and Boy cockblocks him. He's
It's
like,
nice to see. It's nice to see Dan's character didn't change too much from series to series.
it's nice to see finally that the Rangers are out in the world. Period. You know.
Oh yeah, which hey, I'm not sure if I said this in the last two-parter. I thought I did. I had it in my notes, but I'm not sure. I love that these are just their outfits. The outfits that they were awakened in. It's these like kind of mystic, baggy clothes and
ninja-ish clothes.
ninja-ish clothes, and it's like obviously it makes them distinct in a crowd. Oh, with the headbands too.
Mhm.
But I just love like it's modern. Well, at that point, modern time. There they are rolling around in these and their custom warrior outfits just in society.
Yeah, and so Boy cockblocks him. He's like, everyone's gonna be worried. However, here's an interesting part for me. Dan is like, we've been asleep for 170 million years. So they acknowledge they refer to it as sleep in the Phantom Zone. But yeah, they know they've been gone. It's not like it was instantaneous or anything like that. And he wants to play, and that makes sense. So
It's definitely it's what we've been asking for, where we just want to see these characters like be out and about, not just always just as rangers. We want to see them as people. But that being said, so this is like the second time we've been given the Dan Boy duo. Do you
mhm.
think that's just going to be like the natural pairing where you're going to have the overly childish Don and the overly serious Boy?
I don't think so. I think the pairings we're going to see, and you see it quite often, is Boy and May. Then I'm going to say Goshi and Dan, and then Geki is in charge.
See, I would have paired Goshi with Geki just because it always came off as right hand man to the leader.
But
But then again, this is only like fourth interaction outside of combat.
right hand man, you can trust to do what they need to do, and you're not going to bother them, and they shouldn't bother you. You know what I mean? Um, that being said, speaking of Geki, we then transferred to Geki being in a hot desert, and he's walking. It's desolate. It's hot, and it turns out it's a dream. And May wakes him up, and he's been having it for a little bit, according to him. And I thought that was interesting because I'm like, oh, premonitions. We're getting something overarching. I was
You know,
hoping for that.
a part of me, you know what I mean, I like that vision. It's a vision and all that, or at least we don't know what it is. But I will say, a part of me was hoping because you see Don and Boy in society. A part of me kind of was wanting it to be like Geki also tried to go into society and like maybe went to his old hangout spot that is now just a desolate wasteland. So it's like the other two chasing skirts in the middle of the city, and he's just like, I don't know how the fuck I got here. But no,
Which I mean is a good way to be, because half the time it feels like it's their response is, I don't know how I got here. Because the transitions in this show, from what I noticed, is they're just there. They're always just there.
and that's what I was gonna say. It just seems like that's the problem with magic. At a certain point, you don't need to justify things. It just is. Because that's why I felt like so many things are in this episode, at least. But that being said, yeah, so Geki wandering the desert gets woken up, and he has a little conversation because it's May who woke him up.
Mm-hmm.
And what she brought up, I thought was interesting because, from episode to episode, you get the sense you get in your head that time has passed, obviously.
Yeah.
But the way she said it was, we have been fighting Bandora nonstop. So it makes me really wonder if it's literally if these episodes are being like consecutively, like almost like next day.
Well, I
'Cause
can
on
tell
that,
you for a fact these are a series of two-parters, so they are one after another.
yes, what you know what I mean. And so, but because like it really does, like I can see how he could be exhausted if one moment they wake up, chase Pandora off, have to save the children. Next day, all of a sudden, they're trying to train, and their weapons literally broke the day before. Now they're going to the land of despair, and then next day, I mean,
Yeah, and I wrote that down too, that they were tired from fighting Bandora. And it's interesting because normally we don't see tired Rangers until midway through the season, maybe. It really is interesting to me because at the end of the day, I feel like who the Rangers are as Rangers is less important than who they are as people. So here we're seeing some of that personhood coming in already. Uh, Other than that, Goshi comes up because they're tired, but they can't stop. Goshi comes up and he's like, "Yo, all these kids have been disappearing, and a monster has been sighted, and so they have to handle it." And then probably
yeah,
go on.
no, just no rest. It's nonstop, and even the way that Goshi phrased it is like, we've been keeping an eye out on these children. It's already something that hit their radar. And so again, it just kind of lends itself more to the idea that it really is a nonstop thing. They have to keep their eyes open. They have to be ready. Bandora, which also going back to what we said with Boy and Don, I can understand why Boy is just like, Don, come on, we got to get back, because things are just so pressed right now at episode 5.
Yeah, Bandora hasn't let up. But that does not mean Bandora is feeling tired. In fact, she's feisty as ever. Because in the very next scene, you see probably my favorite thing. You see Bandora and her henchmen and Dora Sphinx doing like this dance in a circle together, holding hands and singing. And it's goofy as hell. Grifforzer is asleep in the corner. And she's singing about how she hates kids. And at that point, as she's singing, Bandora literally invokes Satan.
Yeah, she does.
She's like, "Satan, I've promised to kidnap children because it'll panic the adults and remove the planet's ability to have more kids." Which again, I guess this might just be a Japanese preoccupation based on falling birth rates. All islands deal with them, but still. So yeah, that's the grand plan. And then Finster, what's his name? Pleprecon.
Leprechaun.
Pleprecon,
How can you forget a name like Leprechaun?
because sometimes you just want to forget. Pleprecon asks why she hates kids, and she's like, she doesn't give an answer. She just threatens him, I think. And so it's an interesting duality, right? You have on one hand the tired ass Rangers, and on the other hand, the exuberant villains. this is the first time we've seen bad guys really be on top of things for so long.
And I will say, that's the thing, because we've brought it up before that Bandora's always pushing. She's not letting up. And again, it also comes down to and anyone who's worked with children would know this. If you're the one who doesn't have to clean up the mess, you usually have way more energy at the end of the day than the person who's actively taking care of you. And so, of course, Bandora and them are just having fun because, they get to cause the trouble and they don't have to mess with it. They don't have to clean up anything. They just go back to their castle and start another party. But there were some things I noticed and thought was interesting about this scene in general. Was that it was weird, and I don't know if this means something deeper or this was just weird phrasing. But because when they're dancing and Mandora's like, this plan is gonna work, I know because I already kissed it.
Is that what she said? I know she said something about a kiss, and I was just like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know either. And so I was just like, and here's the thing that confused me, and it could just be me reading far deeper into it. Because how they view witches, when you look at folklore for witches, one is that typically they are being paired with children. They hate children, eat children. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's where Bandora is more going in line with. But there was also the notion that witches gain their powers from Satan, and in some folklore, it really is they seal it with a kiss. So I'm wondering if it was just more kind of a callback to the history of witches.
I don't know, because Japan takes liberties. Well, everyone takes liberties with culture, but Japan likes the aesthetics of something and will fit a more Japanese audience. And not that we're probably going to get to it, but in episode 7, you have a Western style monster with a Western background that's I've personally never heard. And so yeah, it could be just whatever they've changed in order to make it fit. That being said, she ends that scene because she gets mad and she tells Satan that she was going to kidnap kids and turns to Dora Sphinx and is like, go get more souls, go get more kids. And then it shifts to Boy and Dan staking out a playground. And
Which,
Dan,
I don't care how much of a hero you are, still always going to be kind of creepy.
It's not creepy so long as you don't have facial hair or so long as you're not 30.
Nope.
Look, I worked with children. I'm telling you, the fact that I was an older male and had facial hair worked so much more against me than I want to admit. But Don just straight up is like, I gotta go somewhere. And Boy is like, the fuck you on about? And he's ducking out to go on a date.
Well, to go make a phone call about the date. He had nailed the date earlier. He's like, I just want to go call her real quick. Either way, it's still not appropriate for what's happening.
Either way, he fucks off. And Boy turns around and there's no kids. And so he walks forward and he's like, hello? And then this fucking Sphinx, Dora Sphinx, slides down the slide and he's like, question time. And he's like, wait, you're not a kid.
You're out of my strike zone.
Yeah. And Bandora, because apparently only Barza needs to stretch his ears to hear into space. Bandora's like, Dora Sphinx, that's the Zyuranger. And so he questions him. He does his usual, he questions him, and Boy doesn't take it seriously, and he blows him away.
Well, he starts to blow him away. Because unlike every other child we've seen get blown away, where they get blown into an open space, since they're on a playground, Boy does have a moment where he's just holding onto the bars and trying to hold on, which gives it enough time for Dawn to return. And he comes back, and Boy just tells him, "Is like that's Bandora's monster," and then whoosh, gone.
Yeah. And then you see it shifts to their hideout. Well, the Rangers' hideout. And Don is being all pissy about it. It's like, it's my fault.
Because of his selfish actions, like his exact words, like he full on says, "Because of my selfish actions."
See, and
You know
part
what I
of
mean? This
me,
happened.
like, I get it. But the other part of me is like, if you're going to feel that bad about it, you shouldn't have done it in the first place. I am fully a fan of doing whatever you want so long as it doesn't make you feel bad. So, like, yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm like, boo-hoo, you fucked up because you're a dumbass. Stop being a dumbass.
Or at least know when to be a dumbass. Like this would have been perfectly fine if they were at base, not actually doing anything. It's like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go make a phone call." That's fine. If it is literally stakeout when you know children are going missing, then yeah, maybe save it.
So, at this point, Barza says he knows what that monster is. That's Dora's Sphinx. So I'm like, I guess he's not just for show. But then he immediately is like, I don't know how to stop it. So I'm like, what are you good for, Barza?
Oh, and trust me, it's gonna become even more apparent how useless he is next time around. Next time he comes in, because boy, am I ready for that. But that being said, yeah, um, he's like, this is the Sphinx from Legend. I guess Pandora made her own version of it, and they just come to the conclusion that it's just like, man, we are just so out of the loop with this. We don't know how to defeat it, and what's worse, we don't even know where these people got blown off to. And that's when the dumbest plan comes into creation from the brilliant mind of Don, where he decides, you know what? You're right. We don't know where they are. And since it's my fault that he got blown away, I'll challenge the Sphinx, lose, so I'll know where they're at.
Okay.
What the biggest problem with that? Go ahead.
No. You finish.
Biggest problem with that is, yeah, we don't know where they're going, and so why would you think, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go there too, and I'm sure that will work everything out.
What I have to say about this, because you're right, it's a dumb plan. But remember how we were talking about how, oh, I'm so glad to have a Ranger team that's already a team, that's a cohesive unit. These 2 episodes blow that to shit. Because this becomes, and I'll just spoiler alert, this becomes a story about leadership, particularly Geki needing leadership. And so the team is just falling apart. No one's really listening. They go to find
because Geki speaks up at first, and he's like, "Don, what are you doing? That's a dumb plan. You're being even more selfish." But Don's just like, "My mess," and rushes out, just as selfish.
yeah, and that's why I started. That's why I said it falls apart because he
Dude,
finds Dora Sphinx.
they straight up said, May straight up says the team is falling apart. It's literally thrown out there so blanket. But dude,
Did it?
yeah.
Oh, go on.
But the thing is, Geki does try to go after him, but immediately gets dizzy and gets knocked back into his little dreamscape.
You're right. You're
You know
right.
what I mean? Before it was always, he said, it's a nightmare that I have while I'm asleep. This time he's just walking, and all of a sudden he gets dragged there. He gets snapped out by Goshi and May, but by that point Don's already gone, and they're just like, dang it, let's go.
Yeah, and so they follow. Don does find Sphinx and loses and gets blown away.
Which
And
wait, I want the audience to know this. You don't see this happening. You don't see him confronting the Sphinx. You don't see him finding the Sphinx. Because what you get is the 3 Rangers, Geki, Goshi, May, riding their vehicles, and you just hear the screaming, and Dawn go flying through the sky.
Thank God, I just thought my notes were bad. So yeah, and they
Dude,
follow him.
I legit wrote bitch flying.
So they followed Don into a forest, and I'm not gonna lie, it is creepy as fuck. They enter in, you just hear whispering, and you hear the kids, and they're fucking trapped in trees for whatever reason. They're in trees. This is probably the most nonsensical part of this. But then the Sphinx appears, and he's like, "They're not dead, but they will when their parents turn this into a golf course, because parents don't care." What was it? They're not going to think about their children when turning it into a playground for themselves. And just some mild commentary on how people don't give two shits about the environment. And they go to fight him, and he's just like, "How about Riddle Championship?" And so it it transports
Everyone's
them,
just whisked away. Yeah.
to an amphitheater in the middle of nowhere. And he's on the stage, and he's like, "We're going to have a Riddle Championship." And my favorite part, Topat and Bookback are just in the audience clapping. They're the only two people there. And Doris Fink's like, "Shh, calm down."
I
So,
will say, this villain, again, what we got in America was completely different, and I'm okay with that. It was still cool in America. But that being said, I'm loving this game show esque. There's such a character. Is so enjoyable, and it's more like him being this awesome designed monster is just the icing on the cake.
well, because the monster part only comes out when they lose a riddle. Any other time, he is in his human form. So it's interesting because it's like, yeah, there's a cool monster there, but that's not really the monster in a way. That being said, here's where the team really falls apart, because Doris Sphinx calls on May 1st, and Geki is like, "Answer the question, May," and she's like, "No," and then she was like, "Oh wait, let me try," and she loses, so she gets sent into a tree. In fact, and then it's kind of funny because as they're trying to help her, putties appear, and so you get another putty punch where they just uppercut the shit out of them. And so,
Yeah, that's important to bring up. That like the cards are being stacked against them, because while he's throwing riddles at them, they're in the middle of combat. They are fighting. They are doing their best to try and, like, especially since you have a 10-second deadline, but also you're trying to fight the enemies around you.
but time out. He didn't. Here's because I wrote this down and I thought it was odd. He did not call the putties in until they chose not to answer the riddles, and it seemed to me they could have just tried to answer the riddles and solved it, but no, because they weren't cohesive. They chose to fight. May was impulsive. She started fighting. So next is Goshi, and he tries to answer the questions, and he's going about it, but he's also fighting, and that's where it comes into play, because he answers the question late. And so he gets blown away, and then all that's left is Geki. And it feels like their balls are this close to the bandsaw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've worked with heavy machinery.
And so yeah, this is when you see the whole thing fall apart. So Geki is trying to answer the questions correctly. He's also fighting, and so Doris Sphinx also starts messing with him, right?
Well, because eventually Geki just dispatches everyone. He manages to clean up the putty, and it's just both of them together.
Oh, right,
And
because it's the
it
last
literally
question.
just become it literally, he takes the time, he answers the question, and until it comes down to the last question, which was one of the most hokey things. Like, look, this is obviously like the rules don't really matter because you're going to lose. Because like the riddle was like, what is it true that there is no absolutes in this world or something like that? At first, I thought it was like a trick question because where it's like the phrase "there are no absolutes" is, or like the Jedi's don't deal in absolutes, are statements of, you know what I mean? So I thought it was like a trick question type deal. But no, Geki pulls out just the answer of no, justice is absolute. And to which the Sphinx replies, no, evil is absolute. And like literally, it comes down to a disagreement in philosophy that they
Yeah.
just decide, screw it, let's just go ahead and fight.
Well, because it was a trick question, he couldn't blow him away, so they just fought. And so then you see Sphinx actually use his weapon, and he has this cool staff that he fires fire from. And they fight, and Geki's keeping up with him. It's an even match.
Yeah, to me, it came off even. And of course, any Bandora watching it can't leave it that way.
Okay, and I wrote this down specifically this time. She says evil spirits that sleep in the ground. So I don't know if she changes the wording or
And I went and checked because in episode 3 she literally calls on demons.
So maybe it's a translation
she,
of spirits versus demons.
It could have been that they realized, oh, maybe demons are a bit too dark of a thing. Let's go ahead and alter it to spirits.
All right, so it could just be a translation thing, where it can mean either. So I love this. She makes him grow. She doesn't wait. She pushes her advantage, and so this is the cool part. Geki summons the Tyranno Guardian, and the Tyranno Guardian slaps that shit out of here. Geki jumps up, and the Tyranno Guardian is like, no, and blasts him away. And he lands in the desert of his dreams. And that's how the episode ends. So, it seems like a lot of what we said our last podcast was wrong. There's no team cohesion. That wasn't the end of the two-parters. And we're just stuck dealing with our folly.
But, I will say, and this is just a minor thing I just want to throw in there because of their exchange between Geki fighting Dora Sphinx. I always love it when you see the battle damage on the outfits.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you see the white on his outfit get scuffed up where he gets injured and stuff like that. I just want to make sure I threw that in just because that's something I always love to see.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like it's like...
It matters.
Yeah. Like this damage is there, it's physical, it's real, and it's not just gone the next day.
So I'm gonna talk about this, but I'm gonna talk in generalities. If you have something you want to say, go ahead and please interject. So episode 6, Arise Daizuizan, begins when Geki is in an unknown rocky desert of his dreams. And then, off in the distance, he sees the fucking ruins of Tokyo. He sees the Tokyo Tower. He literally finds the dead body of his friends. And then the Guardians appear in the sky. And they actually fucking talk. And that was a big deal to me.
I just want to point out, though, I wrote Mufasa in my note. Like, there he is, on the skyline. There they appear. I have expected them to be like, Geki, remember who you are.
They kind of did. They were like, hey, Prince of the Yamada tribe, you're the leader. Gather all 5 hearts so you can summon Captain Planet.
Dude, the fact that this is also technically a tree episode, I was digging it. But no, yeah, I was shocked and impressed and kind of just in awe that, because we threw out sentient Zords, these guardian beasts act on their own, they are their own thing, but I never expected them to flat out talk, to flat out tell you,
to flat out interfere in the going on, Because what they did, because I don't think we actually explicitly said it, they're showing him a vision of the future that will happen if they fail to stop Pandora. If he can't get his shit together, Pandora is going to wipe out Earth, essentially. And
yeah,
then,
it's just then they specifically say you cannot bring us together, and by them they also mean by extension his team together. There is no future.
and here's the cool part. He acknowledges this, and then it zooms out, and he is standing on the corpse of the Megazord. In this case, it's called, I can't pronounce it,
Daisuken,
Daizuzin. Yeah, we'll go with that. Um,
someone's just gonna be in the comment section. Actually, it's pronounced. And here's my thing: one, I have a lisp already. Fuck you. Two, I don't speak Japanese. Fuck you. Three, please like, comment, and subscribe.
yeah. Hey, we'll set up a PayPal. PayPal us. We'll take Japanese lessons.
But yeah, I think that was one of the coolest things, seeing the Megazord etched in sand, and yeah, it turns out that that's the actual thing, and like you said, it looks like the corpse of it. But at first, it's just so dusty from the ruins of everything. I just thought it was just like as if it was rising from the earth. Really cool to see.
See, I viewed it as it failed. It's here. It's buried. It's defeated. But now he knows about it. So I was excited. This was the first Megazord appearance. And his leadership was in question, and that's why he was shown the future. So he's returned, and he sees them all trapped in the trees, and he talks to them. He admits he wasn't a good leader. He asked for their forgiveness. And this was hilarious to me. Because to let you know that they were in the trees, you always see them overlapping. So you see like boy's figure, boy's face on it. However, after he asks for their forgiveness, he says their names, and it just shows shots of random trees. No,
Dude, I wrote tree face shots because this is the scene where usually you get the dramatic cut and it flashes on the actors. Except the characters are trapped in trees, and like he said, they didn't overlay them. So here's tree number 1, tree number 2, tree number 3. Like I'm not even sure if they're the actual like. They could have used the same tree for all I know, because I'm like, dude, that just totally broke the tension of it all.
yeah.
And it was hilarious.
And speaking of which, so we talked about how they're introducing the Megazord. Well, they introduced another concept that we're familiar with in Mighty Morphin, the power crystals. Because Barza then tells him, I don't even remember how, or if he just shows up.
No, Barza just shows up.
Okay.
And literally, he's like, so I heard you're trying to make a Megazord.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what you need.
Yeah, so then he says, hey, you need these dino crystals. But in typical Barza fashion, he sits on his own balls, and he's like, I don't know where they are.
Oh, it gets better. Because then, in the middle of this discussion, bam, Door Sphinx. And just to make things extra shitty for Geki, bam, Grifforzer.
Oh, yeah.
Now he is dealing with both of them. And, there he is, 2 against 1, a very hopeless situation. If only he had a strong magic sage with him, or at least someone to maybe throw rocks and distract. Nope. There's Barza hiding behind the tree. And I just had to write bitch Barza. Because why are you here?
Look, I
You
feel...
give your 2 cents of knowledge and then end with, you know what he is? You remember in tests when they were like, explain how you got this answer?
Yeah.
He wrote his answer and then didn't show his work.
Look, all I have to say is I don't know how to feel about Barza. I don't want to be too hard on him. But on the other hand, so far you contributed nothing but a broken cannonball and useless keys. But yeah, as soon as Grifforzer also showed up, I was like, he's fucked. because Geki was already on the defensive the moment Dora Sphinx showed up, and so now they're both he's fighting both of them. It's wonderfully choreographed. They're Grifforzer is shooting fire out of his sword, which it seems is a common power for him now. And finally, Bandora is like, you know what? It's just one ranger. Both of y'all grow. And so they're both huge. They're both stomping after him. And then Geki literally is just like, where's the dino crystals? And suddenly there's an explosion, and there's the dino crystals.
Well,
no, his sword explodes.
His sword just glows. It sends a blast. Because here's the thing. Here's something we glossed over. He got teleported away. Like, and at first I just saw it as maybe Dora Sphinx took him away again, because Dora Sphinx has transported the Rangers multiple places this time. But literally, he's transported right to the Dino Crystals. I was actually wondering, I'm like, is this like their own brand of magic at play? Because we know the Guardian Beast and the legendary weapons have their own magic.
So that's
the fact that it literally went to where he needed to be. I'm like, I don't think that's Dora Sphinx unless that's an incredibly lucky thing for Geki.
So my thought on it is these things have to all be connected. In the sense of, I don't know if these were all like related to the powers that kept them asleep, the Guardian Beasts kind of thing, or what. But if the legendary swords and weapons are giving them information on the power crystals, and the Zords are telling them you have to earn the weapons on your own, and everything is interconnected, it seems like this could have been, a fighting force in and of itself that was once whole and now is not.
Just destiny at play at this point,
Yeah, but he finds the crystals, and somehow, some way, it frees them, frees the Rangers, and they summon the Guardian Beast. And I'm going to say this: I still feel like our transformation scenes, our morphing scenes, are underwhelming. However, I do love when they morph as they're walking or morph as they transform. I mean, they always morph as they transform. Morph as they run. Because it's epic.
I got some breaking news for you, my brother. About morphing and transforming. Have you seen both of them in the same room at the same time?
I can't say that I have.
There you go, sport.
So yeah, it just gives a sense of epicness. Like
it gives a sense of motion. Like they're charging into battle. It's not. Look, the standing and posing, it does add stuff to a scene. Like there's certain ways to make the scene to add an effect to it. So the standing and posing does give that bold statement of like, here we are, here's your presence. But the charging and morphing gives that sense of urgency, that sense of like, no, we are back and we are hitting this and it is time for action.
So no, you're right. And
they're charging, and Geki just goes ahead and calls all the Guardian Beasts.
Yeah, they're charging towards the beast. And here's the cool thing. They turn into Beast Tank Dino Tanker, which is like a half-form Megazord where it's like a tank with the guns pointed out, and it just looks so cool. And I was hoping they would just finish it with that. Like we wouldn't actually see the Megazord. But of course, you got to sell toys, and it's kind of silly to see the Megazord and not use it.
Yeah, but in all fairness, we've seen the Beast Tank Dino Tanker just from the intro of Power Rangers. But the thing is, and I'm assuming it's because American TV is not fond of having too much guns in children's shows. Because we've seen it in the intro. You've seen it like pause on it. But I cannot, for the life of me, ever remember it being used.
Yeah, they mostly use the Megazords because individual Zords they overlooked, or these half forms. So I was excited to see it. Like I loved it. And then
but real quick though, when they get in it, when they get in the Zord, not only do they showcase new moves that we've never seen before, I just want to point out, because now that they're all in the Zord and they're in the cockpit together, this is the first time since they've been released that the group's there. And they say, they're like, Geki, we've heard your plea, we heard your cry. And they're like, we're not going to stray from the team. I mean, Don's like, I'm not going to be the one that caused trouble. And May's just like, I'm not going to break this team. They were fully ready to be like, we've heard you, let's hit this.
Yeah. And so their new moves hit, but it's not enough to defeat them.
The new move, real quick, it's the Beast Tank Cannon, which is the big exclusive side cannon.
Beast Tank Storm.
Which was really cool because it's just the lightning effect from all the eyes, all the visible eyes. It was just really cool because, again, it's like we have twice as many moves in Zyuranger regarding the Megazords that we ever got with Power Rangers. So it's just really awesome to see.
So my only problem with it is they do this and then almost immediately transform into Daiyujin, the Megazord. I don't want to call it the Megazord, but I'm gonna crutch that whenever I need to. And here's the interesting part: Bandora is legitimately shocked that the Guardian Beast can do this, and it's interesting because Bandora knows everything. It's not like Barza where she's like, I don't know where this is or how to do it. Anytime she sees something, she's like, oh yeah, this happens or that happens or I know what that is. Here she's legitimately surprised at them. And the Megazord is straight up brawling. No weapons in his hands yet, just punching and like dodging and fighting. And it was cool. It was like watching a bigger Tetra Boy. Because I felt like Bird Garuda and Jet Icarus, they weren't brawlers. They kind of grappled and they would use their weapons. But the Megazord here was punching and dodging and just, it felt like a fight, you know?
It was definitely cool to see. However, like, it's also just worth noting that it's still not enough to get the job done.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to see because, especially usually when you get the power up in a show, that just ends the show. Yeah, I mean, you get your new weapons, that ends the enemy. You get your Zord finally, that ends the enemy. Now you get the Megazord, and it's not enough. Like, it's still gonna pull out the win, but it's just interesting to see that it's not like an automatic like clean sweep.
I do want to say one thing real quick before we move on from the fight scene. So as they're fighting, the Megazord literally reverts back to Beast Tanker
Dino
for a bit to shoot off a couple blasts and then transforms back, which I thought was neat because it shows that its other forms can be useful even when it's transformed. But he, in typical Dora Sphinx fashion, the fucking construction workers start cutting down trees. And so I'm like, oh shit, the Megazord wants to go over there, but Dora Sphinx won't let them. And it's funny because then Dora Sphinx challenges them to one last riddle contest. And he transforms back into his human form. He is about to ask him questions. Grifforzer goes to attack, and he's like, no, let me handle this. And Grifforzer did the sassiest thing ever. The most sass. He stops, holds his sword, lays down on the ground with his head on his knuckles, and just looks annoyed. Like, fine.
In all fairness, again, from what I can tell, Grifforzer is just here for the fight. He's here for the combat, and so to have this dude being like, "You stop! I need a riddle for a second." Like, I'd be like, whatever, it's your episode, just fine. He just lays down. It was so sassy, and then again, it's something like you can get character from actions without words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this just shows very much like the manner he did this. I absolutely loved it.
So, and then it wraps up actually quite quickly. They answer the riddles until the very last one. And then Geki starts mocking him.
Well, you say until the last one. Grifforzer fully says he's like, I have infinite riddles. This is
Not
his way.
Grifforzer.
Or no, yeah, Dora Sphinx. This is his way. Because again, I love this because it seems like this has always been Dora's thing. Where, look, there's a chance that's not really a chance. There's always been like, oh yeah, you can answer his riddles, but he knows infinite riddles. It's not really a solution, but it's that little bait that she hooks in there to make you think, oh no, you have a way out of this, because he full on says, he's like, I have infinite riddles. You're gonna be here for as long as I want.
You're right. It just so happens on the 5th riddle, when
Yeah.
which would normally be the end of his little contest, Geki is like, there's only one thing we don't know, kind of thing, and that's his weakness. So long as he doesn't ask us that riddle, we'll be fine. And Dora Sphinx is like, ha, I know my weakness, but you don't. I'll ask you about my weakness. And of course they answer it wrong. And he tells them what his weakness is, which is the snake on his head.
Mm-hmm.
And so they aim for it. And Geki calls Dino Sword Godhorn.
Oh my lord. I absolutely love that name. Dude, if I would have known that that's what the power sword was this whole time. Oh my god, that's fantastic. Especially since, dude, given the context of the name and seeing it fall from the sky and bury itself into the ground for the Megazord to wield, this is the greatest thing. I love this sword twice as much strictly for the damn name.
All right, if you're done orgasming.
I am not, but I'll at least finish off camera.
So they get the sword and they use their cut, Super Legend Lightning Cut. And thus they defeat Dora Sphinx, they rescue the kids.
Well, and somewhere in between all that, Grifforzer just is like, I'm out.
Yeah, it doesn't show him going off. It's just he's done. He's gone.
Yeah, he just, like, because he gets up when the sword lands, as if he's ready for combat, but then you never see him in another scene for the episode. He just kind of leaves at a certain point.
Real quick note, I want to make sure we do say this. So when they were answering the riddles, the final riddles, they answered as a team. May knew one, boy knew one.
Someone worked through that. Someone was working through the answer, and the other person got it because of him talking.
Yeah. So
like, it was again highlighting the fact that as a team we're getting through this.
That being said, that's the end of the episode. And my first thought was, I hope they still have problems as a team. I mean, I don't want this just to be all their issues solved. If you're gonna have them be like this and leadership be an issue, then make it an issue throughout the thing. And I feel like that's what I'm kind of waiting for. In Jetman, you immediately had a theme. You immediately had them trying to come together. The team, growth, stuff like that. Here, you haven't got a sense of that because they've been so on defense. They've been so fighting and so much basically unable to do anything but be Rangers. What about you? What did you think of these 2 episodes?
Honestly, I felt this is hard to say because it is literally our first look as the Rangers as people, besides just those bits we had to pick out in between scenes. This is the first time we see them, like, here's Boy and Dawn just walking through the city.
Yeah.
And so, in a lot of ways, it felt to me as if it was a non-issue that was made an issue for the sake of a plot. Because in every other episode, it's been like, no, Geki's the leader. No, this is how it is. But again, it's easy to say that when we didn't really see them as people.
I'm going to say...
We loosely saw them as just Rangers hopping into action.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna say, I I hope the two-parters are done. Well, okay, let me rephrase. I know the two-parters are done for now.
Oh, you're gonna be green with evil in a bit.
I I mean, I'm excited for that, hopefully, but I don't think it's that soon. Uh,
No, but you know for a fact it's gonna be a two-parter that springs into like
a six-parter like the
yeah.
like fucking Mighty Morphin. Anyway, I'm gonna say this is the last power-up they needed. They, in theory, should have the complete Ranger set to be Rangers at the moment. Like, if I bought all that stuff, Toei would be so happy because they're like, he's finally a Power Ranger. Uh, so yeah, I'm hoping now we can focus on character development. I've never been excited to say this, but I never thought I'd say this, but I hope we get to Monsters of the Day. Uh, and I'm ready to see some real development because that is what is missing from this series so far.
Yeah, and for me, I'm first of all, I just want to say Barza sucks.
He's no
And
Zordon.
he's no Zordon. But because of this, I want the Rangers to figure things out. I feel like by eliminating this overall mentor position, it leaves it open for that. However, I've seen like there's plenty of cool parts, but in the end, things are just being stated for them.
Yeah.
Like his visions, when he finally has to confront it and face it, is literally just the Guardian Beast telling him what needs to happen.
Oh
So
yeah.
I want to see more like searching and more of them overcoming things, not just being told this is how it is and you can make it happen, and more of like you figure out what you need to do, you have the power already. You know what I mean?
I was definitely hoping the dream sequence would be building up to something big. And you know what? I wouldn't have minded if the Megazord like was a mid-season, maybe not mid-season, but like a quarter season finale kind of thing. Where, you know, let's see. I'm bad at math. Never mind.
Are you trying to divide 50 by 2?
By 4.
Ah,
Anyway,
you couldn't pick it. You couldn't do 40 divide. Either way.
point
But
being,
point break.
yeah, I wanted something more from it. Uh, Doris Sphinx, where does he fall?
Okay, I think you're actually not going to agree with me on this one.
If it's not an A, I'm going to disagree with you.
Oh, wow. I didn't think you would rate him that high. I gave him an A.
Woo! We're in agreement.
Because even though he lost in a dumb way, hear me out. He had a devastating power. Like, the rules were absolute. The fact that he could blow away the Megazord if they failed. His power was solid. He had a really cool design, but the thing that won it over for me, that placed him not just at a B, but at an A, was his human mode.
Yeah.
That had so much character, and in a way, it's the human mode that lost the battle for him, not his monster form.
Dude, it
So
was
like
the
it felt like
human
so
mode
much
that
of
was the monster form. Because his monster form only really came out to follow through with what the human said.
and because of that, I just liked him better. I just thought he was a bigger, not I wouldn't, yeah, I'll say a bigger deal, and just a lot more of a character than just a throwaway monster. Because the last monster in the two-parter we got was Dora Minotaur that didn't amount
Do
to
anything.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that this one was so active in these episodes was great.
I think it was a really cool design as a monster. His human form was interesting. The power was fun and unique. I think that as a whole, he was also more successful than any of the other monsters we've seen so far. Because let's face it, Dora Titan, just muscle. Dora Minotaur, just muscle. Dora Skeleton, pimpin', but he didn't do much in terms of power. So that's what you're left with, and yeah, I can see it. Good talk. All right. I don't have anything else. Do you?
No, I just got the quote of the day.
All right. Let's hear this quote of the day.
You know, guys, it seems like Geki's going to be a man of wisdom for this. And take this one to heart, because as crazy as the world is right now, you have to believe this. Because according to Geki, justice is absolute no matter what.
In contrast, evil is absolute. So good night. Follow us on Twitter at Chojin Chumps. Like, comment, and subscribe. All that good shit, because I guess we're trying to build a platform.
Yay.
Yay.
See you next time.
Peace.
冒険してカッパピーやったんけ